Hey everyone, welcome to this month's episode of my cyber video series, where we've been taking a look at various stages of the cyber kill chain, taking a look at key examples from the side of the attackers as well as the defenders. Well, today we're going to be covering a topic called lateral movement, which is near and dear to my heart, coming from a network background. I'm really keen to explain this topic to everybody. So without further ado, let's dive in and have a look. All right, so let's take a look at lateral movement. Well, as a reminder, here's the MITRE attack framework and all the different tactics that we've been looking at throughout this series. So far, we've covered these sorts of topics at the beginning of the kill chain, understanding reconnaissance of the environment, getting initial access, maybe disabling some of the defenses and figuring out how we can progress further within the environment. But today we're going to be talking about lateral movement, and as you can see, so the adversary trying to move through the environment. So we've done some additional reconnaissance on the inside, and now we want to extend that and go further. So let's look at this in a bit more detail. Well, if we think about a traditional network, we've got things connected together, and we've got a bunch of different devices on this network. So maybe we've got some endpoints, some laptops, some workstations, maybe we've got some servers, maybe we've got a database, and maybe some network appliances and things like that. So from a perspective of the attacker, they've already got that initial access. We've jumped onto a workstation via a phishing attack or whatever it may be, and they've gathered a bunch of intel. They've done some scans, they've got some credentials, and now they want to move further. So they want to pivot to something else, maybe a domain controller or something with a greater level of access, and ultimately start owning the whole of the network. They get as much intel as they can and steal as much stuff as they can. So how can you combat this? Some of the traditional ways would be to put an agent on particular machines. So whether it's your EDR type of solution, but also some of these things you might not be able to put agents on. So you can put some level of visibility on the network in terms of NDR and network detection and response, to cover that lateral movement and also to cover machines where you can't install an agent. Now, typically the problem with this, you're going to have different consoles. So you might have an EDR where all the information is being fed back from your agents, but then you've got a separate NDR console that's being fed back from your network. And from the perspective of the administrator, this is not ideal, right? So we've got to log into multiple different places. Not only that, maybe you've got a SIEM platform where things are coming to and you're correlating things between. Again, it's just more consoles for this guy to have to log on to, and his life's being made rather difficult. So one of the ways in which Trend can help with this, if we think about a redesign of this, we've got these same agents sitting on the network and the endpoint. A better way of doing it is have a single console, and let's call it XDR, Extended Detection and Response. And all this telemetry is coming into here, into one single place. So that when your administrators need to see that, they can come into one individual place to see combined telemetry from both network and endpoint, and they can really build that story. They can understand what's happened throughout the entire stage of that attack kill chain. So let's look at a more real world example of this in a bit of a demo. Okay, so here we are back on the machine that we've gained initial access to. If you remember in the last episode, we started gathering some details on credentials and ports that are open and things like that. So what I've done on this machine is I've run a tool to simulate something called Cobalt Strike, which is a popular tool used for attacking as well as testing. So this is simulating some traffic to command and control servers, as well as some key machines across the network that we've got in this lab. So it's trying to open some connections over SMB. So we've generated a bit of traffic there. And then also, you know, maybe attackers are living off the land, right? They're using existing tools instead of having to deploy malicious payloads and things like that. So let's maybe just try and connect to a few things. If I go MSTSC to open RDP, let's connect to a domain controller that we've gathered some credentials for. Just going to authenticate. So we've connected through to this machine. We've also been running some similar traffic here, and then maybe we're going to use this as a bit of a jump box to connect to other things on the network. So we're going to connect to an application server over here. There's Bob. So there you go. We've hopped for a few machines. We're starting to gather more details, steal more data. And again, as the attacker, I don't care if I'm moving across the network or attacking the endpoint. It's all part of that broader objective and kill chain that I'm working through. So let's look at the defender side and how can we detect this kind of activity. If we hop over here into trend vision 1, you can see, first of all, we've combined a lot of alerts together in terms of what we call insights. So we've got an example up here, OS credential dumping that leads to command and control communication. You can see it's impacting 7 different machines. And again, we've got a combination of credential access, but as well as lateral movement and command and control traffic as well. So if we dig into that insight, we can see that there's a lot of different alerts that this is displaying over the course of that attack. If we have a look at the date over here, you can see a lot of them are today on the 15th. But if we go back also from last week, we were running some stuff. And you can see it's a mixture of things that we pulled up with the endpoint sensor. So that might be those, credential attacks that we were running last time. But also we're using something called the Deep Discovery Inspector, which is a network appliance to pick up these network attacks. And we've tied all this story together inside one big incident that the defenders of the SOC analysts can track over time. So let's have a look at a few examples of alerts that we found. First of all, we've got that Cobalt Strike connection. So if we dig into this, again, we can see some highlights and telemetry. What we can do if we've got this network appliance, we can go one step further and have a look at analytics report. So we can dig into some of the network traffic insights, and we can see this particular machine has started beaconing out to these IP addresses. We can look at all the different transactions that have happened, and also indicators of compromise if this is going to a known bad C2 server effectively. Moving back, looking at some of the other alerts, also we've got lateral movement over SMB protocol. So if we dig into one of these, again, let's look at a similar analytics report that we can pull through that Deep Discovery Inspector. And we can see now what's happened across the network. So first we've started on that initial machine. There's been an SMB connection into the domain controller, and then the attackers use that as a jump point and started connecting to other machines across the network. So again, we can play this out, we can track this out over time and understand what was the path that the attacker took along the course of the campaign. And finally, what about those instances where we were quickly hopping across the network using RDP? So not necessarily doing anything malicious, but it's something that looks a bit strange. It's not normal behavior. So again, things like that we can identify, and we can start to pull insights on which machines we're connected to, by which users, and those kind of things. So again, just in summary, it's bringing everything together within a single console, combining endpoint and network telemetry to cover the entire attack kill chain. Okay, so hopefully you found that useful. Thanks for tuning in. and come and check out the episode next month, where we're going to be covering off the final stage of the attack kill chain, which is all around exfiltration of your data and some of the ways in which you can stop that. Now, for anybody in Sydney, there's still time to sign up to our Risk to Resilience event over here. It's on at the Ivy around lunchtime tomorrow. So if you're free, we'd love to see you there for a couple of hours and a spot of lunch. And for everybody else, see you again soon. Bye-bye.